We are so back, and welcome back, and thank you so much for tuning in to I Think You Should Buy podcast. My name is Nick Atera. This is Kyle Hendricks. We are two mortgage loan officers that are sharing our knowledge with you. So thanks for joining us. Kyle, how's it going?
It's going great, Nick. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're going to get into the specifics today. What the mortgage industry has brought you as far as knowledge, wealth, abundance, life, all the above.
Dude, you got to keep this character going up.
I know, I should for the whole episode. But yeah, we're going to touch on what we've learned in the mortgage industry or just real estate industry even.
Or I guess just even like, not even specifically just that, but kind of working for yourself in a sense. Like,
yeah.
Kind of more of the, I hate the words thrown around pretty loosely, but like entrepreneurial, where you're kind of like in charge of how that, I mean, like we talked about before, there's no playbook given to you. It's like, hey, here's your first day. Now go find loans. Like just a job where it's kind of like you just kind of got to figure it out. I think there's been a lot of lessons learned.
Yeah, dude.
And some of them fun and nice, and some of them not so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say this could be something we could make like a 3-hour video on. We're gonna condense it to try to make so we're not rambling on topics on business, but I'm gonna hop right in and ask you from when you started to now, what would you say is the number one thing that you've been able to? What's the number one lesson you've learned working on your own, not having a boss, really?
I got lucky because like my office, there's just so many like killer leaders, like so many. Like I got thrown into an office where it's like, hey, these are like a bunch of the top loan officers in the country, which was like a good and a bad thing. I mean, bad only in the sense that it's like I'm like, dude, I got 2 loans, like I'm feeling really good, and then everyone else has like 20, and I'm like, which is overall a good thing, but sometimes like it was like a little bit daunting when I first got in, but those are the type of people that you want to be surrounded with, right? You want to be learning from people that are in a position that you want to be in someday. So I got super lucky with like the whole leadership at my company, because I don't know about you, and this is probably like a stupid notion to have, but you just think a lot of the time like, okay, people that are crushing it, making a ton of money, some like when you're growing up, you kind of think like that those people are going to be like rude or snobby or whatever. It's been the exact opposite. Like it's pretty crazy. Like they'll just give me so much time where I'm like, I know how busy you are. Like so I got super lucky in learning from that. So honestly, like one of the biggest things that I would learn, and I wasn't even thinking about this, but it just kind of popped in when I was talking about that. Find someone who is where you want to be, not just through work, like obviously through work too, but what are they doing outside of the work? Are they investing in real estate themselves? Are they good people? Are they living a life that you're like, hey, I want to have that life? Are they crushing it with their relationship with their family and stuff like that? And so finding someone, like finding a mentor, essentially, and you don't need to be like, hey, can you be my mentor? Which you totally can do that as well, but like just find someone who's like, hey, I want to be in that position, and then just ask them, like straight up ask. I've learned like you're not going to get what you don't ask for, and the worst thing that they can say is no, and then it's like, oh cool, totally fine, I'll go try and find somebody else. But finding people,
super true.
Finding people that are in the position that you want to be in, and then trying to just be a sponge around them and learn whatever you can.
Well, I think that's, before you keep going, I was going to say, I think it's important to make sure that you are like 100% in on that person. Yeah. I think sometimes on a surface level, individuals can put on a facade to act like they're doing X, Y, and Z. Yeah. So you really have to make sure not only they are doing it, but you enjoy their presence and their personality, because if there's even like a little bit of a personality trait or a characteristic of that person that you don't agree with, it's hard to get behind.
It is, 100%.
And like put all your faith into them. So
yeah, just making sure that they're a person that you vibe with and want to be like and be around is probably, I mean, it definitely is more important than the business aspect of it, because you're like, well, if someone's making a bunch of money and killing it and doing all these loans and stuff like that, but they're a garbage person, then it's like, okay, well, I don't care how you're doing it in your business, because it doesn't translate to your personal life. So, but yeah, just finding someone that you can learn from, because they're going to cut out 90%. I mean, you're still going to make mistakes and mess up a lot. Like there's no way you can get around that. Yeah. But they can cut out 90% of it. And so right there you have such a big jump on someone who doesn't have that. You know, realizing you're lucky. If you have someone like that that you can learn from, not everybody does. So really leaning into that and utilizing that, I think that would be my number one thing. And it's not just in business, but like I've really started doing this more and more on like social media over the past couple of years. If there's someone who's like investing in real estate, like there's a guy in Washington who's younger than me and owns like a couple hundred units, and just crushes it. He's like he was on Bigger Pockets, had one of their most listened to podcasts ever. I just hit him up one day. I was like, hey man, could I take you out to coffee? I'd love to hear how you did it. And he said, yeah, drive over. He was in Eastern Washington. He's like, drive over, we'll go out to lunch and I'll, take you in my car and we'll drive around my portfolio. And I was like, holy cow, I was not really expecting that. I drove 6 hours round trip to go get a 3-hour meeting with this guy, but I never would have got that if I didn't just ask.
Yes.
I literally just was like, hey man, like, you're killing it. I love to see it. Like, I'm in Washington too. If you're ever around, I'd love to, get your coffee and pick your brain. He's like, yeah, drive over to Washington. Like,
it's true with any business. I think for us in the mortgage industry, a lot of partners we work with are going to be real estate agents, financial advisors, homeowners insurance agents, anyone that's going to be tied into the purchase of a home transaction. And I think something that you learn along the way, and I think most people that are real estate agents or loan officers, whatever you do, when you first start, you're trying to build up confidence. It's harder to make those connections or at least introduce yourself because we're all programmed to like, well, I'm not important enough, or they already have 3 other people that they're going to use. And there's so many success stories of people that do what you just did and reach out, and the agent or the financial planner or whoever it is, maybe it's a home buyer that they didn't think would work with them. It's like, yeah, I would love to work with you, or yeah, I have time. What's up? Yeah. And you have that 15-minute conversation that turns into something later on down the road, but it's all about just taking action.
Well, yeah, and you could be right a lot of times too. Maybe they are too busy and they say no, and then you're like, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not that bad of an outcome. I'd say that's the biggest thing, but I'll flip it back to you. What about on your end?
I know I just had it. Now I'm spacing. I was going to say, I think what I learned over the last, probably 2 years is that there's no blueprint.
There was.
Yeah, it goes back to, so when I've been in the mortgage industry. I think we've both been in it for about similar time, about 5 years now, or a little over 5 years. And I started, which we talked about prior, I started with a bigger company where I wasn't on my own.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have that process of having to think every day what I was going to do. And so in the beginning of 2022, going all on my own, we had those talked about it where you start and you're like, okay, so what should I be doing every day? And the reality is you can have a mentor and they can tell you things to do, but you just kind of have to learn on your own.
Yeah, and they're different than you too. And in this business, you can create whatever kind of you want.
So I think the longer that I've been in the industry and kind of figure out what works for me and what doesn't is knowing that what worked for me 6 months ago might not work in the next 6 months, and you have to constantly evolve, and there's no right answer. And then through that, I've learned to just do or post on social media or make phone calls I didn't want to make, but doing stuff that I used to second guess on, where I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna be worth it. But doing it for 30 to 90 days and seeing what that looks like, rather than just trying something. I think what a lot of young entrepreneurs do is have an idea, do it for a week or two, and then if they don't see results, they're like, nah, it's not worth it, it's not going to work, and then give up and try it over again. And it seems like, at least from the books that I've read and the combos we've had, most successful entrepreneurs, I hate using that word because in reality we're mortgage loan officers, but you have to do something for long enough to actually see what the results are going to be. You got to have to give yourself at least 90 days.
And sometimes 90 days isn't enough. Depending on the thing, sometimes because there's been things that I'll be trying and then it seems like it's not working, and then 2 years later, all of a sudden it's working. So that's another thing that messes with your mind, because some things will take 90 days and then you'll start seeing it. Some things will be 6 months, which makes it even harder. Mm-hmm. But there's a weekly video that I do that you already know about this, that I do to all my referral partners, all my clients, pre-approved buyers, everything that I send every week. And there's been people that have been on that list for 4 years. I do it every week for over 4 years now. And then just this last week, there's been somebody that on it was like, hey, I saw your video this week. I just wanted to reach out. They've been on it for over 2 years. It was just that one that sparked something, and then now
they just had time to look at their phone because the other times they're not, and it just gets lost in email.
It's kind of a crapshoot, but that's why the consistency is so big. Because if you're always trying the new thing, or you're going to get nowhere because you're trying everything and switching it so much that you're never able to get traction with it. But then there is things that you should give up on, if you're not seeing the results. So it's dude, that's what's so tough about this business. But it's also, I think, part of the reason why we hate it, but part of the reason why we love it too, because it's always forcing you to
adapt,
be trying new stuff. And I think another thing too, that you said that was really smart is just starting to not care, because it used to be I don't want to post this video on Instagram, I'm gonna look stupid or whatever. But just getting to a point where it's I don't care if someone thinks it looks stupid. They're going to scroll up past it in 5 seconds. They're going to look at 100 other videos and then not even remember the next day.
Well, if you don't think it's stupid, why would everybody else? It's we have that thought process of you always are, if you have that negative doubt in your head. But the reality is it's not. You're just trying to talk yourself out of it.
And even if they do, who cares? Because there's posts that I've spent all this time on, and I'm oh, this one's awesome.
Yeah.
Gets nothing. And then there's one that I make in 5 minutes, and I'm I'm more just posting this one to have something up there. And then I get a DM hey, can I actually hop on a call with you this weekend? I want to get pre-approved. So it's such a...
Yeah, I was going to say, what's funny too is I've fallen on the other side too, where we're talking about figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and then trying to make sure after you give it that trial and error. Switching gears, what we do, and you're doing so many different things throughout the day. I've gotten to a point where there was something that was working for me really well. I was having a lot of success with it, and I wasn't doing it enough. If that makes sense, where I track everything that I do monthly, and I looked back after 2 months and was all right, so this is what this worked for me, or let's find out what worked. Looking at what worked, I'm why haven't I not put more time into that?
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and you're that. It doesn't make any sense, but you're constantly learning and evolving and trying to figure out.
There's so many things about this business that I love, and so many things that are. It's a love-hate relationship, but it's very rewarding, which is, I think, a big reason why we stay in it. Because when you do get to help people close on a home, it's a pretty cool scene, and getting to see that on people. But then I also think we both genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah.
I've always just been so interested in investing in real estate that getting to do it, it's if I didn't genuinely like what I was doing, there's no way I'd still be in this business. I would have been burnt out, because it's challenging at times, to where if I don't think if we enjoyed what we're doing, it wouldn't last. So I think that's a big thing too, is make, with any sort of job like this, you got to be in it, you got to like it, especially since I think you and me aren't really sales guys. I can't sell to someone. I can't be they're yeah, I think I'm gonna wait a bit. I'm not in the best financial situation. I'm not the guy to be no, I really think you should.
You need to go into more depth.
Yeah, I'm just yeah, okay. We'll stay in touch. Let me know if you have any questions. So, because we're not really salesy, I feel just liking what we do goes a long way, because it makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Well, it helps too when there's statistics and data, at least with real estate, where you don't have to sell it, right? Because if you want to buy a house, you're gonna make money.
Yeah.
It's just about when, right?
Yeah.
The timing and making sure you feel comfortable on it's the biggest debt you're most likely going to take on. So you have to jump over that.
And it's a scary thing. It is a scary thing. I'm in the business and do it for a living, and still, when I bought my first property, it's you get the butterflies. Well, crap,
I'm going to go spend a bunch of money.
We're actually doing this thing. And so, yeah, I think another thing too is, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, is just having a short-term memory, because we get so many no's and so many, especially loan officers get a good portion of their business from real estate agents. So it's hard enough to get in front of a real estate agent, let them get coffee or whatever, have them be okay, I'm going to give this person a shot. And then we're both pretty good at what we do and have good teams. So then that usually does most of the work for us. You do one loan with us, you're going to want to use us again and again. But getting that meeting with an agent or a financial advisor or an attorney or whatever it might be, if you're going to ask 10 people, you're going to get probably 9 no's. screw off, buddy. Like, I already got 3 loan officers. I'm busy.
It's a numbers game, right?
It is. So having a short-term memory and just be like, okay, well, I'm going to go ask the next person. They're going to tell you no, then no again. But then you get the one, and then you might even get that meeting. You guys don't vibe or whatever. So, I mean, that's a big thing, too, is just having a short-term memory, not taking stuff personally. It's like, hey, we just got to keep going, just grinding it out.
Yeah, I was going to say the longer that you do something, the more you realize what works and doesn't work. And I think specifically with like real estate agents and loan officers working together, what I found is you can get through all those stages you just said, have the meeting, you guys are like, hey, I like you like me, let's work together. And then I've been in a position too where as we progress, maybe the connection wasn't what we thought it was going to be. And then you can kind of, I got to the point now where I'm like, hey, it's fine. Because I want to work with people that I have a genuine connection with and can pick up the phone, not only work together, but go grab a drink or go hang out outside of what we do 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours a week. Yeah. And again, it's different depending on what scenario, and not even with loans, but if you're just starting up something, sometimes you have to put your pride aside and work with whoever because you need to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to just realize that you get to control who you deal with. And so not only, you do need to sell yourself, but you have the control to say, actually, I don't want to work with you. So
yeah, and I think a big thing, too, is like when we first started, it was like, okay, you got to take anything and everything that comes your way because you
make it work.
You've got to have some sort of income or something. But we're both to the point now where we've been in it long enough, we can be a bit pickier. We can be like, okay, I really only want to work with people who I like and who I like actually, like you said, have a connection with. So we're getting to be a little bit more pickier now, which I think is good too, because this job's already like there's stress and a lot of stuff that comes with it. So if you're also working with people that you don't vibe and mesh well with, it just makes it that much more stressful.
Well, I was going to say that's what I forgot to mention. We were tying that back to the short-term memory, and it's like if you're reaching out to 10 different agents or attorneys and none of them like you or they all say no.
Yeah.
It's probably people you didn't want to work with anyways, right? If they didn't have the time to listen to you talk.
Yeah.
So
100%. And I mean, not taking it personally too. Not everybody's good. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and
not going to catch everyone at the right time.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's another thing that's hard to balance too, because just because it's not the right time for someone now, it might be a year later. Like I've had that with agents too, where I've reached out to them before, they never got back to me or whatever, but then a year later we cross paths again, and have a great relationship or whatever too. So a lot of the time it's just
it just takes time.
Yeah, it's
or the right time.
The right time for both people and stuff like that too. But I'm looking at the laptop here. We've been going about getting close to 20 minutes. Got our buy and sell the week still, but I mean, what else before we move on from this too? Because this is the first time we've actually really talked about real estate on the pod. It took 5 episodes.
Yeah,
which is I like. I think that's what we should kind of keep it relatable to everybody because not everybody's in this. But I guess what else should be things that we've just learned throughout the business. I mean, like you said, we could probably go for hours on this one, but I'm just trying to think. Do you have any that are jumping out at you as well?
Let's save it. We'll save it for another episode. We'll drop some more knowledge on.
Well, should we just keep this one fairly short for the people? I know we're trying to stay around 30 minutes or so. We've done a couple that have gone a little bit long, but
let's do the buy and sell.
All right, you want to start us off with the sell?
Yeah, my sell is traffic. I can't do it. I've grown up in Seattle. I feel like that's such a cliche thing for a sell, but I'm going with it.
Yeah.
I feel like I just drove to a meeting last week, and I just can't stand sitting in this. I feel like I'm very. I need to be doing something 24/7. So sitting in a car, not being able to move, but also physically not being able to move, but then in the car you can't move. You're just sitting there. I just feel like I'm losing time. So luckily in Arizona, at least in Maricopa County, Phoenix, Scottsdale, it's not that bad, but they're constantly doing.
I feel like it has been kind of bad
on the freeway. So
a lot of the snowbirds are starting to leave, so it's getting a little bit better.
It'll be better. So that's my sell. Seattle's 10 times worse. I could not live in that city.
People that do that drive
every day,
from Tacoma, Puyallup up to Seattle. Hats off to them because it's impressive.
You gotta be built. Yeah, you gotta be built different. You gotta have a good podcast to listen to, which is why we're doing it. This is for you.
This is strictly for commuters. Yeah. But honestly, that does help a ton. Because even when I do have long drives, like driving from Washington to Coeur d'Alene or things like that back and forth, you throw on a couple podcasts and you're like, oh shoot, I'm there. So that podcasts were like such a savior for that. I feel like.
Oh, for sure.
And you could be, you're learning stuff at the time or whatever kind you want to listen to, or just
like an audiobook.
Yeah, that type of stuff as well. But I'm going to do mine too. This is a timely one. And, it's just part of signing up when you buy rental properties. But getting the tenant call or the tenant text, I had this yesterday, and it's just like, hey, we don't have hot water. And it's just like, I was like in the middle of stuff with work already, like got all these things stressing me out. It was like the perfect storm. Like 3 things had just happened. Then it's like, and I look and it's like, we're not getting any hot water. And I'm just like, I just like smiled and kind of laughed to myself. I'm like, of course.
Just be right now. So what do you do?
We actually got it figured out. So I called around to some people in my family, both of my grandpas and my dad, and they all gave me really good pointers just because they're all a lot more handy than me and have dealt with it quite a bit. I've only had to put in one hot water heater in my other unit, but we were able to just turn the breaker off. There's like a reset button on new hot water heaters, some free game for people if this ever happens. Maybe you could learn something. You take off one of the covers, there's a reset button in there.
And just started working.
They did that, and then they did that, and then said, hey, sorry, it's still not working. And then you remembered a few hours later, you said, oh, I forgot to turn the breaker back on. Went and did that, and then it worked. So it was actually, I had some people in my family who were nice enough to be like, hey, we'll go look at it. And then I had a plumber, too, that's in one of my networking groups. That
oh, nice. Super clutch to have.
If they couldn't do it. I'm learning, dude. Networking groups, saving everybody's contact you meet. I have an Excel with all the people that I meet. And I put their profession and stuff, so when it happened, I looked up, I was like, oh, shoot. And they were like 4 minutes down the road from my rental properties. Yeah. Luckily, though, that worked. And he's like, hey, we got hot water again, so it wasn't that big a thing, but it was just the timing of it all. I was just like, oh.
Yeah, dude, when it rains, it pours. I've been there this week. So.
But, hey, that's what you sign up for when you buy rentals and
it's all part of the
property management and stuff.
Well, you do a good job. I think you talked about this. You put a good chunk of what you bring in and
put a portion of that rent every month into a reserve account.
We'll have to talk about that. One of the episodes is I'll just pick your brain on. I mean, I know we have a rental property too, but you know more than I do.
Yeah, dude. That's eventually, like down the road in the podcast when we both have several rentals and stuff too. I think it would be cool to talk about that type of stuff more because that's like a niche of my business is helping people like get into properties and stuff that I really. That's what got me into the business and what I really like. But all right,
my buy is dude. I've been running into this a lot. Maybe it's because Bree and I get coffee a ton, but my buy is anybody that works in the service industry, like coffee or food related, that is just like puts a smile on, says how are you doing. I can't tell you. I don't know why it bothers me so much. If I get coffee and I'm the one that's asking you how your day's going, then I feel like it's just you should be your job. And maybe I'm overstepping. Maybe this is a hot take, but if you work in that industry, your job is to put a smile on, and then especially if you're getting tips, right? Like you're doing yourself a disservice. My buy is anyone in the food or coffee service industry that is happy about going into work and just being friendly, because I think it goes a long way. And I think at least anyone that you and I are running around with, we're more than happy to, like, I tip every single time as long as the person is providing good service.
Well, yeah, too, and like, I feel like it can actually, like, make your day. Like, sometimes you'll just do your routine, you're going to get a coffee or whatever, but the service just kills it. Like, I'd leave genuinely, like, fired up.
Yeah, have a good conversation. At the coffee place we go to, they ask for your phone number for rewards, and, like, there's been 3 people that are like, oh, you're from Washington? And then we just have a good 2-minute combo, and I'm like, yeah, see, I like that. People that I can't get behind. I just can't imagine, like, in our job, too, if somebody was to call and was like, yeah, I'm ready to buy my home, and I'm like, cool, what's your employer's name, and then do you have any money? What?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my buy.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. Mine is timely, just like I talked about with the tenant call of the cell. Dude, my grandparents. I sometimes forget how lucky I am to be, like, creeping up on 30 here and have all 4 of my grandparents.
Yeah, I'm in the exact opposite.
And just realizing, like, sometimes how lucky I am, because I know that's pretty rare, like, as you just said. And then also, like, all 4 of my grandparents are just cool as hell. Like, I can literally just hang out with them, chop it up, and talk with them like I'm talking with you. And, like, not have to, like, act any different. Like, they're just all super, super down to earth, super nice, like, super, just, like, some of the most pure people I know. Like, just trying to remind myself of how constantly, like, lucky I am about that. Like, what I said with the tenant call, I was able to call both of my grandpas and pick their brain. Like, hey, what do you think? And on top of that, they both said, don't send the plumber out. We'll go out there for you. Like,
Yeah,
the plumber's
so
going to
nice.
charge you too much.
Yeah.
How freaking lucky is that? Like,
yeah,
it's
that
just,
is awesome.
it's badass, dude. And they're... So
I'm jealous.
Got to give a shout out if any of them are listening. But
They are.
it's, yeah, dude, I'm just lucky.
I'm extremely jealous because I think that it's so cool because when you're older, when you're a little kid and you have grandparents, they're the ones that give you Christmas gifts and you're happy to see them when you go over there for holidays. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
And then what I missed out on is I wish that I was able to pick my grandparents' brain as I got older because you look at them in a different light. They're just abundance of knowledge that.
Dude, it's crazy. Yeah.
So that's cool.
They've
That's a good vibe.
lived so much and
because they're old.
But I won't go too deep into it. But yeah, like every time I'm with them, like I just feel like, holy shit, I just learned so much about like, even if it's just like about like recently, I was working on a rental with one of my grandpas over the last summer on one of his, and I was just like, I've never like asked you about like your childhood or growing up, and just learned like over 2 hours of like we were just painting a room. I was just like afterwards, like it was just like, damn, that was so cool. I just learned so much. Yeah, kind of like finding a good mentor, like we talked about earlier in business. They've already dealt with a lot of the stuff that we're going through, and so like you can kind of pick their brain. It's cool. So yeah,
it's a great vibe. That might be the best one yet. I think I like it. That's my vote.
I think you should buy. Thanks for tuning in and rocking with us here.
Yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in. We will see you on the next episode.